My name is Andrew Towert. I run business development and marketing for Proteus Systems. I'll talk here a bit about Proteus as we start out, and then get into really how we took advantage of Java in our product and to really deliver on our value proposition to our customers. Talk about who those are and really what's the decision process that led to where we are today. Entitled it Leveraging Java to Enable Velocity in New Monetizable Services, and it's because that's really what the core to our business model is. So with that, I'll get started. Small audience, so if there's any questions at any point, feel free to chime in. I'm sure we'll have time at the end as well. So first, Proteus Systems, what are we about? Our value proposition to our customers and to a consumer is really to improve the way people interact with technology. You'll see that the way we do this is focusing on enabling service providers. I'll talk about who they are, but in general they're traditionally telcos, cable cos, satellite companies, so on and so forth, to deliver a suite of value-add services to their customers. More specifically, the solution that we have, our offering, is an end-to-end managed service delivery platform. I'll talk about the architecture as we go through it, but think of it as a cloud service that we distribute in a managed fashion to operators. We're white labeled, so if you went to our website, you probably didn't walk away with much, because mostly our services are powered by the brands of major operators, both initially outside the U.S. and now emerging inside the U.S. The platform itself is, consider our value proposition being to an operator that most operators in the world these days are delivering what in this space we call the triple play or quad play: voice, video, broadband, and wireless. And they're all thinking about how do they deliver the next suite of services as the connected home evolves. As people start doing more and more from their TVs, from their PCs, from their mobiles, as they start to look towards other services inside the connected home, different devices in the home itself become connected. The operators don't tend to have platforms that can actually scale and deliver the services to those different devices. That's exactly what we sought to build. So with one platform, which is a software-based platform, they can take their voice, video, and broadband and then start adding to it healthcare-related services, so I can do remote management of people with chronic diseases, home automation, home security, home remote IT support and backup services, all through the same interfaces that people are used to using today. So just imagine, and for the few in the room who've seen our product before, you're sitting there at your TV set and you're doing everything from being reminded that it's time to check your blood sugar, to being told somebody's at the front door, to controlling the blinds because you're about to start a movie. Those are, to a certain extent, dreams that, or pipe dreams that many home automation and home control focused companies have been working on in the past. We've realized that in a platform that's really delivered to the mass market. I'll talk about how we do it, but that's really how, when we started this company, the vision we had to bring to our customers. So how do we get here? You really, to look at how we address this space, you have to look at how all of these services from all these different operators, in particular your homes as well, have evolved through the years. Most operators in the past have focused on just a limited number of services and devices. First, it was for telephone companies, it was voice and broadband. Cable companies, it was video, then got into voice and broadband. But originally, and if you look back to say the 90s, you had basically 3 devices in the home that they did anything with. You had a triple play, best case, a package of voice, video, and broadband that you can put on top of it. And you had no convergence between the two. In other words, that you couldn't take your content service from your TV and watch it on a mobile or a tablet or a web page. And of course, from a consumer's perspective, there's limited choice. The other thing that happened at that time is that at the end of the day, there was very little convergence of how the operators themselves dealt with this. They had separate billing mechanisms for how to bill you for your telephone service, from your broadband service, from your video service. Separate support people, separate support infrastructures. The whole, what I refer to as the life cycle management of those products was completely disjoint. As things evolved, of course, the connected home evolved, and more devices inside that home had to happen to have either an Ethernet connection on them or a wireless connection on them. So you've got more and more connected devices showing up in different rooms and in that consumer's life. You have, to a certain extent, a few years back, you start to see common software platforms start to ride on these things. Initially, the Samsungs of the world would approach things just with a Samsung software environment and Samsung architecture, and then of course the Apples do their thing, and the Panasonics did their thing, so on and so forth. But you didn't see a lot of commonality, reuse of platforms. We're starting to see that somewhat, like Android as an example. But if you go back a few years, it still wasn't. You weren't seeing major software platforms riding across these different devices. The service providers are still typically a few years behind everybody else, and they're still trying to focus on maybe the triple play becomes the quad play, where they throw wireless in there. But that's about all they were doing. And from a consumer side, your choices haven't changed, specifically as it relates to services. You can go out there and buy a few more gadgets. But then the onus is upon yourself to hook up those gadgets, support those gadgets, and figure out how to make use of them. The problem of billing infrastructures and support infrastructures and so on only got worse. With every one of those new devices that came in, if there's a service attached to it, I go out there and I buy a Roku box and I get Netflix on it. If I have a hard time figuring out how to make that work, who do I call? When it comes to paying my bill, I have a bill for Netflix, but I also have a bill for the other guys who are delivering the rest of my services. Advanced to where we are now, a lot more devices are now connected. Instead of just display devices, you have a lot more non-display oriented devices. Locks at front doors, you've got medical devices that have network connections on them. Some of these connections don't always make a lot of sense. You might have a refrigerator with a connection on it. But the point is that more and more of our life is connected via IP. And of course, at the same time, you then bring with it the complexity of, well, I have now a new sea of choices that I can pick from as a consumer. This problem, as you could see before, from a billing and a life cycle perspective, has only still gotten worse. Then you layer on top of that the over-the-top trend. Those in the service provider space, and well, pretty much anywhere in the Western world here, know that there's a trend towards over-the-top services where I may decide to cut the cord from my TV provider because I'm going to get everything over IP. I can subscribe to anybody, can deliver anything over a broadband connection. Well, that takes this space and just fragments it to the nth degree. So now I've got a variety of different players. Some of them are my telephone company and cable company. Some of them are pure over-the-top players that are coming into the connected home environment and maybe delivering this service on this one connected TV but not on this other. Maybe on this game console but not on this other. And so the amount of consumer frustration that results from that is huge. The amount of issues as it relates to common infrastructure to be able to deliver a simple experience to a consumer, to support it, so on and so forth, is really a non-starter. Service providers themselves tend to be have a deer in headlights look as to how they're going to deal with this space. So this is the problem set that we were focusing on. And when we started architecting the platform, we didn't really, to be honest with you, didn't really envision things becoming as fragmented and as connected as they ended up becoming. But it's only basically proven out the value prop that we have when we bring our platform in. So the problem statement that we put upon ourselves was solve this digital dilemma. The dilemma of I've got too many devices that have just disparate services. I've got too many, I want to be able to access these different services from all those devices, but I can't. I have different service providers in my life that I can get services from. I can get this from this app store or this from this service provider, but I can't get everything from any single party. And then, of course, again, if something goes wrong, Lord knows who I call. Typically, nowadays, people tend to call, the youngest kid living in the house or the 14-year-old living down the street or whatever, because they seem to know these gadgets better than anybody else, especially when you talk in a mass market sense. So what Protea did was translate this to, well, what do we need to build? So our needs were, A, we have to go into a connected home environment where we know that whatever number of devices we support today, end user devices, these can be display devices like TVs, it could be a telemetry device like a sensor, it could be a healthcare device like a scale or a glucometer. Any number of devices that I support today, I know whatever that number is, it's only going to be, greater, double, triple, whatever tomorrow. I can also count on the fact that whatever the protocols are that those things speak, I'm not going to drive any standardization amongst them. Even when a group of consumer electronics companies get together and say, hey, we're going to standardize how we deliver media throughout the home, they still can't come to an agreement because they all have different agendas to solve. So we've said our platform's going to need to support a lot of devices and the protocols that are associated with them. Layered upon that, of course, we're going to need to support a variety of different services. Some of these are going to be different applets like what I can do on a connected TV. Other of these are going to be more complex end-to-end services like remote healthcare and security management. And then lastly is the value proposition that any of our customers seek to bring into the home. And the way in which they probably have any chance of staying relevant in this world relative to what, say, Google and Apple are doing is to enable a convergence of these services that nobody else does. So in other words, if an AT&T, as a one-off example, tries to take on a Google in terms of any one individual application, they probably will lose. Hopefully there's nobody from AT&T in here, but I don't think so. Where they do have a competitive advantage or a distinct advantage against those types of new entrants into this market is when you look at the fact that an AT&T could provide a converged experience that as I go from my TV, my PC, my mobile, as I do go from one platform, an iOS platform, to another that happens to be an Android, to another that happens to be, Samsung's connected TV, I have a chance of providing a service that carries with them. And this is the way that service providers see that they can at least stay relevant in this space. So to build a platform that does that, we need to not only bring in all of these different services, some of them over the top, some of them are homegrown, but we also need to do it in such a way to enable the seamless interaction between these different devices. And so we really were left with two choices. One is build a single platform where we try to reinvent the wheel inside our connected life. What does that mean? So I sit there at the TV, and could Proteus go out there and build another Netflix, another set of internet apps like connected TV apps like YouTube or different types of internet video, internet music, pull in a best-of-breed security service, a best-of-breed healthcare service, so on and so forth, which even for a big company is not necessarily a realistic objective, or basically take on a massive system integration activity. Build out a platform that is really designed to integrate to these different types of over-the-top and embedded services, and then we can make the decision as to what we want to pull in and what we want to reuse, what we want to invent ourselves. So obviously we chose that second path, where effectively we're going to a service provider saying, we've got this platform for you, and within this platform you can pick and choose whether if you yourself think you're going to take on Netflix, then here we can plug into that or we can enable your Netflix equivalent. If you yourself think you're going to partner with the Mayo Clinic on a congestive heart failure related program for all people that suffer from heart disease, then you have the ability to do that versus reinvent the Mayo Clinic, which obviously they're not going to do. And so that was the path we took, and basically the fundamental requirement of the platform that we built. So what do we build? The platform we built we call ROS, Residential Operating System. That's a white label, again, term, because the consumers, for the most part, don't ever see that name. But what it is really an end-to-end platform. Parts of it resides in the home, which is the part that I'm going to talk about more here fundamentally. Part resides in the cloud, which plugs into major service providers, back office equipment, and infrastructure. And then basically it delivers these services to different devices. And what we've done in our architecture is really done it in such a way that we can make that decision point by point or vertical by vertical as to whether we're building versus buying or partnering versus reinventing ourselves. So here's what our architecture looks like. At the end of the day, if I put it into a consumer term, not necessarily what the consumer sees, but if I put it into the terms as to how something like this would come into one of your homes, we're effectively a software client that's riding on a box that a service provider brings into your home. So you get this new set-top box from a company or a new modem from a telco. It just so happens to be charged up with a series of capabilities that they're going to then go position to you on a regular basis. And so from this we actually have this three-tiered architecture. The cloud, which I'm not going to talk as much about, although it does make use of Java technologies, to deliver both the management, and I'm talking on the bottom here, but both the management value proposition as well as how it plugs in to different operators' networks. The home, which inside the home here, which is really divided into these two categories, what we've done is we've separated out, we've driven almost a client-server architecture inside the home, whereby we recognize that the different devices that consumers are going to use to access content and services is not necessarily the same device that's actually serving up that content or that service. And so we've created this concept which we call a home center. Think of it as a software-based server that's riding on different types of platforms inside the home, and that's in that middle section there, and then delivering experiences through web services to a variety of different types of clients. That client could be a connected TV, it could be my Android phone, it could be an iOS app, it could be, we really don't care what it is because at the end of the day we know that that set of clients is going to keep evolving. So within this server element here, which is this center section here, we had to have an architecture that says that we have to be able to run on different types of platforms. Like I said, it could be a set-top box in one case, it could be a gateway in another case, it could be a piece of hardware built by Proteus, it could be a piece of hardware built by a different company entirely. And within that, we had basically decided to build a number of fundamental functions ourselves, which are these really platform and management services here. And then basically build within that a JVM whereby different apps and services, when we go into, say, healthcare, and I'll talk about the example here, where different apps and services are built as bundles inside of OSGI inside of Java. And as we go through in the next parts, I'll talk about, well, why that was good for us and how. Some of the benefits, though, of the architecture were, we got scalability both in terms of supporting the large number of subscribers that an operator would need to. Because we have a piece of an intelligent server sitting inside the home, we didn't have to scale up the cloud as much. We also got scalability with how we evolve in the connected environment. If I was at a trade show the other day where somebody was talking about what's next inside the connected home as it relates to video, in terms of how people consume video experiences, and it was a bunch of broadcasters and the like in the room. And the last panelist to talk basically said that anybody who can predict how people are going to really consume video next year or the year after, I'd like to know whether they predicted how the tablet would really change the way people operate today. In many homes, myself included, TV doesn't even get used as much anymore because my kids can sit there on the iPad and get all the content that they want. So the truth of the matter is, in all of our homes, the one thing we can count on is that the different ways which we consume media will change. It will change a lot. So for this reason, we separated out that top layer with the different user experiences from the server function inside the home. And so, of course, now the core, the most fundamental core to everything Proteus does is that server. It's how we get the server into the home. It's then how we then go integrate that server to different types of other platforms. But without that server element, which we call the home center, we would not be able to deliver the value prop we did. So to that end, then, why did we pick what we picked in terms of Java and OSGI? Obviously, as I said before, picking a software environment that allows us to port towards not just different hardware platforms, but different flavors of hardware platforms is very fundamental. Our first deployment was with a telephone operator in the Middle East, in Dubai, where they're effectively a traditional not even an AT&T-like operator, but a small version of an AT&T, let's consider them that. They built up a bunch of services, then the next thing they said is, oh, well, we want to go take this over the top in conjunction with satellite. So now all of a sudden they're saying, I want to take all the same services that you just built onto this platform, but I have to put it onto a set-top box, effectively, that does satellite plus all of these other things. Well, the last thing we want to have to do is then go reinvent the wheel because we're going from a kind of a pure telco-type world to a satellite-based world. Our second customer was an operator who wanted to focus on connected communities, and they wanted to get this platform into environments where they're integrating to security systems and building management systems and local concierge services all within a very confined community. But of course, once that's successful, the next step is, oh, I also want to push this out to the rest of the subscriber base over on an entirely different platform. So the ability for us to build our applications and from a end consumer device perspective, port those applications as quickly as possible to other platforms was fundamental to our need. Another reason why we chose Java is the ability to sandbox these applications. So that way, if one developer is developing a new service related to entertainment, I have to be able to confine that application should something go wrong, because that same platform is running a mission-critical healthcare application. So if this one clinic is running a program to manage people with congestive heart failure, when certain events occur inside that consumer's home, it must react a certain way. And there's very stringent requirements that it's working and it's always on. I'm sure that application works and was tested to perform at the 5 nines of reliability that it needs to, but the problem was, what if somebody else wrote an application that then takes the platform down or robs it of system resources or what have you?
How do you deal with either the myriad of standards or the lack of standards? It seems like a huge problem.
Yes, absolutely. And so what we ended up doing, and I'll even show you a picture here, and another reason why we chose OSGI, or actually Java with OSGI on top of it, was we had to treat each of the different devices that we're going to have to talk to as a proprietary implementation. I.e., have an architecture where we can slot driver after driver after driver. If one of those drivers is a standardized interface, great, we're happy. And to a certain extent, some of those exist. But I'll even show you when I walk through some of these examples here, when we went into the healthcare space is a good example. You know, there's one company that makes a good number, probably 60% of all the glucometers out there for checking blood sugar. It's a completely proprietary interface. Okay, so we had to put the drivers in there for that. The next healthcare institution we talked to, were we going to get them to implement the same protocol that the first one? Not at all. As a matter of fact, we didn't even try to fight the battle of having device manufacturers change at all their device that they put in the home, because we know that those battles are going on amongst all the different consumer electronics device companies. They're all driven by their own agendas. So the only way we're going to do it is to take all the proprietary protocols that we're going to have to interface to and making sure from an architectural perspective we can slot those in. And so wherever standardization exists, it makes our life a little easier, but we don't at all count on it. And that's core, very much core to our message to our customers, because unfortunately in the service provider community, especially telcos and cablecos, they don't even, their egos are often a little bit too big to understand that you're not going to move the entire consumer electronics industry. Consumer electronics will do what they want to do. So we just show them, listen, if the next hot device that you want to integrate to is this protocol, let's not get religious about it. Let's just make sure we can build that driver and push it into the platform quickly. So I was on, Sandbox was of course one thing. Moving down the list here, on this middle section here, a big piece of it is, as we go, certain of these services that we implemented, when we first started on healthcare, we started doing it ourselves because we saw it as a very core strategic initiative for our company. So we brought on advisors and architects and what have you to say, what does an end-to-end healthcare management system need? But we as a company certainly don't want to do that till the end of time, and we can't scale our business if we had to do that. And so we needed the ability to then go engage other local partners to say, hey, listen, we've got this basic platform capabilities here, but if you want to go take this same platform and put your own custom security application on it, or your own custom energy management application on it in conjunction with the local power company, here's the toolkit, have at it. And so Proteus ourselves, of course, built our own development kit that we can give to partners, but fundamental upon that was to give them an environment that they could go do that code development themselves. And obviously one thing that Proteus looks to do as we scale up our deployments is to bring a larger developer community to the mix. And so we don't want to be in a position where we're the only ones that can develop on this platform. So starting with Java was fundamental to enabling that. And then, of course, related to that is just give us velocity as we go to market. So we made that decision. So now you've got our platform in the home. It's Linux based at its core, Java on top of that, or our platform services in Java. But then we decided, is that enough? We did make the decision that we need to layer OSGI on it. OSGI was added for a number of reasons. First and foremost was this kind of component-oriented framework. And by that I mean that when you think about what you want in your connected home, it's not just about the fact that I want to turn out the lights, remotely, or, check to see whether my security system happens to be plugged in or on or turned on or whatever. It's really about the fact that what you want in your home, what I want in my home, is probably some combination of that, but I'm going to have my own routine, my own schedule, the own things that I want to do in my home, and you're going to have your own. And it's the ability to, what we in our company call, create connected home mashups. So as soon as I interface with a new device, it could be that camera at the TV, it could be the camera at the front door, it could be the ability to control the thermostat, where the real power comes in is the ability to start to customize that towards my needs. I come home at a certain time and I want certain things to happen in my house. I've got what are, I've got a theater mode in my house where I want to turn out the lights and do this, and the other thing. My father's a diabetic. Well, he's got different routines he wants to do specific to his remote management of diabetes. And so to do that, it meant that we cannot, to deliver our value proposition, we cannot implement services in silos, isolated from each other. So you've got this Java environment, but we want to make sure that every bundle that we ever put in there, every piece of code that we write in there other developers can then make use of to create other mashups inside that connected home environment. So the one guy who figures out how to talk to this garage door opener or whatever it is, somebody else can then go write an application that goes and takes advantage of that. And so starting with Java, but layering OSGI on top of that, and allowing our developers to then go create these bundles, but then publish those bundles to other people that are developing on the platform as well, is a pull-through for the platform and adds a lot of power to it. The ability, the management of it is another core part of our proposition to our customers. So any piece of software I put on there, any application I put on there, I have to be able to control the whole life cycle of that. That's something that OSGI adds a lot to the mix from that perspective. And at the end of the day, it's also recognizing that the day we put this into the home is not the last day we're putting software on that. Every day, day in, day out, you're pushing new services, pushing new applications, and so that tight management of all those applications and services is fundamental. So the architecture we had basically starts with Java, puts OSGI on it. I guess the last one we would say is that in many of the circles we were running in, or we are running in, OSGI is thought of as a standard way to approach this, i.e. telcos and stuff like that. And so from that, basically, we can deliver the proposition we sought to deliver. So with that, what I'll do is I'll walk through two examples. Now, the interesting thing about these two examples is that when we first architected our platform, we had done nothing in healthcare and nothing in home control or energy management. We were focusing initially, because we founded the company in 2006, focusing initially what our customers were focusing on was mostly entertainment, a little bit on security, personal media, the ability to move content around the home, very much a content focus, and of course including things like voice and home networking and stuff like that in the mix. But healthcare was never a single requirement on our in our engineering requirements list that our developers were developing too. But then at some point in time, we brought our platform in front of some healthcare experts and we said, this is what our platform can do, what do you think? And they said, well, if you could develop a platform that does the following, these things that we have on here, and I'll walk through them, you could really move the needle as far as what's going on in the healthcare industry. And I'll talk about why in a second. It starts on the bottom right there with connected home devices. The first thing they said is instead of talking to a TV or a camera or a phone, maybe you can talk to medical devices. Well, that's pretty much a no-brainer, other than your comment before of having to speak the protocols to them. But that takes a couple weeks on that. Moving down clockwise through it, the next is that instead of interfacing with back-end partners that have content-related services or entertainment-related services, we have to interface with healthcare institutions that provide repositories to store medical data like electronic medical records and personal health records, hospitals that actually have doctors' portals and different IT infrastructures so that they can enable healthcare providers to remotely manage. We have to connect to the doctors and caregivers themselves. We also have to connect to other members of the community. My father's a diabetic, as I said. I'm an influential member in his community because I can then go use the system to help coach him and remotely manage him and make sure that, you know, he's following the daily regimen that I asked him to, even though I happen to live in Texas and he happens to live in New York. On the content side, we also had to interface with different forms of educational content, video, incentive mechanisms whereby I can incent dad to actually go check his blood sugar and you know, really provide an ecosystem that includes not just me collecting data, but me also remotely engaging him. None of these things did we build into the platform day one. What we did decipher from that is we have to have devices, we have to integrate with third-party repositories and data, we have to integrate with content services, we have to integrate with logic engines for healthcare. This is where the system receives these 3 readings from my father's house and decides I need to trigger an event like call in the professionals or push some reminders to him because we're noticing that a given value on his blood sugar is on the rise. These are not systems that Proteus was going to build because we didn't want to get into the middle of that. These are systems that third parties would provide. And then lastly, as you can imagine, the security and the privacy requirements are pretty stringent when it comes to this. And ultimately, what I'm talking about here, we did get FDA and HIPAA approval for. So we knew that, you know, one way or another, it's going to be we're going to have to follow some specific rules for it. So that's what healthcare brought us. And now I'll walk through what energy management and home control brought us, and then I'll talk about what the resulting architecture looked like. So on the home control and energy management side, I'm sure, you know, many of you just in passing here of you know, the ability to, like I said, open doors, you know, check if windows are open, turn lights on and off, what have you. Those are the standard requirements, yes. You know, that you layer on energy management in there where the device list is not just about controlling things, the device list is also about sensing things. How much power is this one device using? Where's the money on my energy bills going? You know, can I set up a schedule for my water heater whereby it's not running it all 24 hours a day, so on and so forth. But where our customers took us was, again, not just there. It can't just end there because that's not enough to really make it, to really help it take off. It's the ability to create, as I was saying before, these custom scenes where I as a user can say, here's what I want to do, here's how I want to very easily program my home environment. When I come home, I do this, I want this to happen, that to happen, or my kid walks home from school on their own. As soon as they walk in the front door, I get an alert. I can see their image was on the front door. I can then go you know, initiate a remote teleconference or whatever I want. This is very specific to me, my home, my life, and the next person is going to be specific to them. And so this is where the worlds of security and energy management, home control are all coming together. So whatever we developed here can't just be in that one silo. So what were the requirements coming out of this? A whole suite of new devices. Some of these standardized, fortunately, many not. So instead of healthcare devices, it's things like I said, like thermostats and light sensor, outlet sensors and outlet controllers and so on and so forth. It is new protocols with each one of those. It is these user-defined scenes so that I can customize it to my needs without having to call in a programmer to do that. Because once you get into that, you're really into an industry that's only caters to the top 1% of the population. And it is this interaction between these different types of services where I can blend the scenario I said before of my daughter was a combination really of security and home control. And then lastly is, again, I don't want to be in a position where Proteus has to do all that development, so we have to then go put these capabilities into third-party hands. So when you take those two together, which again, like I said, we didn't really architect with these services particularly in mind, this is what the resulting architecture looks like. Starting out at the bottom, we have a series of platform services that is really core to what ROS, which is our core platform, brings to the table. This is the management of a home environment. This is hooks into telcos and service providers, OSS, BSS, their billing systems, their consumer portals, so on. That then exposes a series of platform services to everything that we put at this Java layer. We did, of course, like I said, bundle OSGI inside there. And so each one of these things you see here is effectively another bundle written in the same JVM and inside OSGI. So, whereas starting at the bottom, I have a proxy to talk to my platform, fine. But basically, we first created user-defined scenes with a home control context in mind, but then we allowed energy management to make use of those same user-defined scenes. I had a suite of protocols that I had to support. Z-Wave, Zigbee are somewhat home control and energy management centric. Bluetooth is both. Ant Plus is usually used in the medical community. But once I implemented any one of those protocols, any app or service can then go make use of it again because it's just another bundle sitting inside that same framework. And then we created these vertical services. Now the truth is, the one thing even this chart doesn't reflect is that I can have many, many instances of a healthcare service. Healthcare is one of the more emerging areas, so we're doing pilots in the US and outside the US. And even in the US, we've got medical institutions that have their own flavor of what they want to do with remote healthcare management. So there's many instances of that healthcare service, which Protea wrote those in this case, but Protea doesn't even need to be the developer of those. But the next version or next instance of that healthcare service can make use, of course, of all of those other capabilities within the platform there. And so now no other developer has to worry about how to talk to an Ant Plus glucometer, how to create user-defined scenes. What's also not on here is we built bundles for talking to medical repositories. So the first version of it puts all of the medical information from that user into Microsoft Health Vault, which is their EMR. But then we had it was actually with Oracle at the HIMSS show, the medical show, we were demonstrating how we can take all of the same data and plug it into a Oracle-based personal health record repository. That work took like one of our developers just a couple weeks, because all he had to do is take, let's kind of say sitting out here, take that bundle that says take all this data that we're getting out of the home and plug it into this repository, just create another instance of that, and now it leveraged everything else that was in that same platform. So it was I think a very good poster child or ratification that the approach certainly paid off, because at the end of the day, all of our energies to make this possible was years of work kind of at the platform level and building the framework. But the first pilot instances of both healthcare as well as home control was literally 2 weeks worth of work for one of our engineers. And then it inherited all of the rest of the benefits of the platform in that regard. Some of our learnings, some of the obvious ones, this first section is ones that we expected to find. Obviously, rapid porting and development as we went into these different environments, depending upon what hardware we were needing to run on in a consumer's environment. The communities of users that we could then go tap into. We go into one of our partners and say, listen, if you've got people that could just develop these services in Java, then we can very easily use them on this program. The security is paramount and fundamental, and by security it's mostly around the ability to contain applications, to make sure that applications are written in this sandbox and only have the rights to do what they're supposed to do. And then integrating to not third-party developers, but third-party systems like that medical repository example I just gave before. Because everywhere we take this platform, we have to do that. One of the opportunities was that we saw for JVMs in general was the whole bundle management theme concept that I talked about, which OSGI brings, which I do believe Oracle has since added, but it was something that initially was not there, and something that was very important for us. And I think it's for anybody who's doing a similar type of application will run into this need. So that way we can more easily manage putting all these apps into the same environment, because we need them to deliver on our promise, but at the same time have the full level of management over each of these individual bundles as we push them to the consumer. And then of course what we ended up with was this platform. So most of our customers actually launch with entertainment, because our customers aren't always, if they're service providers, they're not always the best marketers of the world. They don't necessarily launch with the most innovative thing, but they go out there with a very strong, a very powerful Trojan horse, whereby they launch with a video on demand plus maybe a remote an elder management or elder monitoring type nanny cam type service. But now they've got the ability to continue to leverage that on a day in day out basis. So you're sitting there at your TV one day and you just get this pop up that says, "Did you know you can now subscribe to this new service that does X, Y, or Z?" And they can do that because we sat there in the background and just pushed that new app and pushed that new bundle and allowed them to deliver that new complex service, but it hasn't changed how they run their business. They haven't had to invest a lot of money into building that, and really hasn't, is really just additive to everything that they're doing. So I think that's our story. Questions?
Do your customers deploy with a device that you make, or do they take your platform and port it to whatever they
Both. Both. So what we had to do is we had to, actually like any small company, we had to seed the market ourselves, because the first thing we did is we went to the guys who are making devices in homes for service providers. These are the Motorola's and Cisco's and Paces and whatever of the world. And the first thing we said to them is, hey, if you did this, if you put our app on your platform, look what we could do together. And of course, they scratch their head and say, yeah, we should do a platform like that. Thanks for the idea. So they were always resistant. The other thing is that they're always also not the most innovative people. So if they go to a customer, Motorola goes to one of their customers and says, well, the good news is I got a set-top box that can run all these other things. The bad news is it's $1 more. Comcast of the world say, I'll save the $1. And so that's changed a lot, thanks to all of the innovation largely coming out of the Bay Area that's got the Comcast of the world more scared, and they know they need to do new things. So what we did is we launched with our own line of hardware, but all on industry standard reference designs and chipsets. And now we're at that stage where the first few third-party manufacturers are building these boxes according to spec from the chipset guys. We're even going into the chipset guys saying, hey guys, let's make this a core part of your software suite, and make that something that you avail to your customers as you develop a new line of chips. And that's where we see this going. So the day will come in the not too distant future where we don't make any boxes, and we solely run on third parties.
Your stuff right now has set-top box capability, video and all that stuff. What about subsetting this and throwing on, say, a Linksys gateway that you have in their house?
We do. We've actually got two flavors. We've got a version that's kind of totally server-based, which is like a Linksys gateway on steroids. So actually, the first box we built was exactly that. Yeah, because we didn't want to get in the set-top box community is its own little world too. So the first thing we did was really the equivalent to what you'd buy from Linksys, but just a bit on steroids. Then we got into the set-top box space, where even on the set-top box side, we allow them to bring in the traditional providers of middlewares and stuff like that on set-top boxes. We just complement that. And then I'd say the last box that Protea will take to market is actually a little dongle. It might as well be a wall wart, that you just basically plug into the wall and plug into your home network. It has no video in and out. It just has a network interface or wireless, and it's just a server. And so in that case, we're not even the Linksys of the world, because what we're finding is that unlike 2006, people are replacing those Linksys boxes less frequently now than they used to be, because you went from B, G to N to double N or what have you. But nowadays, how many of our home networks have changed? Yeah, other than that. So that's primarily it. Other questions?
Sorry, I came in late. I don't know, at the beginning of your presentation, did you go over the business model?
I didn't go over the business model, but I'll be happy to discuss it with you. So basically, what we do, it's actually a good piggyback on the last comment, was what we do is we go to our customers with an end-to-end software platform that we deliver as a managed service. Now we go to them and say, we have these pieces of hardware. If you want them, you buy them from us. If not, we're fine to run on something else. And then it's really a revenue share based model that says you let us in the door with this platform. We don't charge you a lot for hardware. We don't charge you. They don't even have to do the back end hosting. We can do that for them. And then because we're in the door there with you, we will jointly benefit in that. The healthcare stuff, which you did here, that's a good example where we go to a customer first around, we weren't even talking healthcare, around, entertainment type proposition. We deliver them a bunch of services. We go back and build out this end-to-end healthcare program where our customers don't pay a penny for it. We come back to them and say, okay, we're already in the home, we're already running there. We've built out this healthcare solution. We've even talked to some of the local partners here. And did you realize that, this insurance company or this Ministry of Health would be willing to pay you $10 a month just to get this inside the home? So, and if they agree, then we just split the revenue on that. So basically, we're trying to take the innovative, not depend on the operator for the innovation because they don't always have it, and also basically align our interests. And it is, not to make it a softball, but it was pretty fundamental to also using Java, because we're only as good, I can tell you, when we get that first contract with a given operator, that's not really what excites us. What excites us is we get out there, we get into the homes, and now we can start developing new apps and new services. And so at the end of the day, if we didn't see a platform that was future-proof to be able to deliver, to create these new verticals like healthcare, then our business model as a whole wouldn't really stand. Go ahead.
My question was, so there are a few stakeholders. There is this third-party application developers or these who make these consumer devices, and there are the actual the homeowners, who are end users. And then who exactly are your primary customers?
So initially our customers were exclusively service providers, telcos, cable companies, satellite companies, people who are delivering services, some semblance of voice, video, broadband, or whatever, or wireless to you today. We're seeing that change a bit where there's a lot of other players in the market. If you look at the role that companies like Apple play in a consumer's life, they are a provider of service and content and what have you. So we're seeing that change a bit where you're getting less traditional service providers come to the table and say, you know what, I still need to deliver, I still need to have the ability to have a quality run, scalable managed service, but I'm not a telco. And what's really changed this is this whole over-the-top trend, right, where I don't necessarily need to own that copper or that coax in your house in order to deliver service to you. And so I would say over time we're seeing more and more development of those other types of alternative service providers, but to date they've all been the traditional ones. And then to your other question, or it wasn't really a question, but just to highlight, we took the same approach with apps as we did with hardware, which is we didn't just give them a toolkit and say, okay, now theoretically if somebody were to build an app on this, you'd have a cool app. We actually built the first few apps ourselves, and like healthcare, we go out there and we invest time, energy, money into thinking about how to piece together a healthcare solution. So we ourselves also bring apps to them, but we don't say that this is a Protea-run walled garden. We say, as anybody that wants to develop apps and services on this, subject to our customer's agreement, then they can do that.
So there are two ways of approaching this, right? So you add as many of these protocols and different devices to your service, and then you go to the service provider, or the service provider asks you to add these devices because they target these kind of devices.
It always is a combination of the two, right? I mean, we would love if our service providers, customers would prescribe, oh, here's our 5-year vision and every app and service we need to do. But again, they don't know that themselves always. We often have to go to them and say, you know what, there's an opportunity here in healthcare. There's an opportunity here in security or whatever. And then from that, we distill out now new requirements like, okay, well, if we are going to get into healthcare, we got to add these protocols, we have to have these types of platform services. So we let the apps and services pull through the platform. Don't just hypothetically create platform capabilities thinking, well, maybe one day we'll use these. Because at the end of the day, the app and service is what they're going to sell. And the app and service is what's going to give us our rev share as well. Question?
What are some of the device trends you see on the medical device side that would impact your strategy going forward? You assume a lot of devices will be incorporated some kind of connectivity back to it.
Yeah, well, what I'm seeing definitely is a lot of devices. Certainly there's some, first from a protocol perspective, I'm seeing a bit more gravitation towards Bluetooth, LE, I guess it is, you know, a low energy version of Bluetooth. So that's good because you know, ANT Plus is probably the most common device protocol to date. I am definitely seeing this. You know, it's almost a Qualcomm initiated trend of I want to build a cloud service that's tied to everything that comes inside the home. I'm not really a cloud service provider company, but I figure I'll figure out how to monetize that or use that later. Definitely many are doing that. The first wireless scale that you can get on it, pull the readings off, company by the most successful one is a company by the name of Withings. They did just that. You have to go through the Withings portal to go see the results. And so just like probably in many other industries, there's a bit of a land grab there where everybody's trying to roll out devices that are tied to their back-end service, none of which have really figured out what they're going to do with that back-end service once they've got people on it. We try not to get in the middle of that battle. You know, we've got two ways to get the data. We can either talk directly to the device or we can talk through the cloud service. To the consumer, they don't really have to know the difference. But certainly I'm seeing the trend towards that.
Do you see any activity in the standards area that's trusting?
Not that point, no. Because that's where business needs are, you know, supersede standards needs. You know, standards, I'd say where the biggest activity I'd say on the standards side is probably when you do look towards integrating that data in something like a personal health record repository. I see more activity there, but that doesn't preclude the Withings of the world from still pulling it first into their cloud first, right? So I think there is some good work being done there because of you know, government-initiated mandates that this stuff does need to be digitized. So it is coming together a bit completely in the cloud. I don't think it's really sorting out the home environment at all for anybody, but it indirectly helps us, I guess, because we can, at least I can get access to the data and still deliver our service. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you for your time and your attention, and you know, it's a good experience here to be able to use these technologies to deliver on what we're doing. Hopefully, one day you've all got it in your homes, and you'll give me your direct feedback. So, thank you.